Hey all, Alex from Music Hub here, and today we'll be doing a review of the 1984 book by Donald B. Cole, Martin Van Buren and the American Political System. Person number 8 in this U.S. President Deep Dive, Martin Van Buren, born the 5th of December 1782 in Kinderhook, New York, died the 24th of July 1862 in Kinderhook, New York. While his presidency was marred by a subpar response to the Panic of 1837, Van Buren's influence really rests in what he did before entering the Oval Office as a senator in New York and later as Andrew Jackson's wingman. A shrewd networker who was great at making alliances and connecting different political factions together, he was perhaps more than anyone else responsible for building the concept of a political party as we know it today, and his vision of a consistent two-party system obviously would become the norm in American politics. Van Buren was truly the founder of the Democratic Party, and yet his name has been shuffled to the side a bit, even when compared to non-presidents of the day like Henry Clay, Daniel Webster, John Calhoun. This book was written by Donald Bernard Cole, born the 31st of March 1922 in Lawrence, Massachusetts, died the 5th of October 2013 in Exeter, New Hampshire. A history professor at Phillips Exeter Academy, Cole focused his research efforts on democracy in the Jacksonian era, writing several books on Jackson's presidency through his life. This book on Van Buren is the closest thing to a proper biography that he ever wrote. And no, even if it starts with Van Buren's birth and ends with his death, I wouldn't quite call this a biography per se. Or, if it is one, it's a biography with a very narrow focus. As the title suggests, this book is focused on the political accomplishments in Van Buren's career, and it hits those aspects of his life very hard. I actually think this is some of the most honest, well-done political analysis that I've encountered in any of these presidential biographies. Maybe you could argue that the early years of his political career were glossed over, but once he really starts greasing those political wheels in New York, Cole does an awesome job explaining how Van Buren gained influence and wielded power, and what all he was taking into consideration while he did it. The years as Jackson's Secretary of State and Vice President have the most detail, and not that Van Buren's presidential years aren't covered well, but Cole does treat parts of it like a train wreck that he'd rather just move past than analyze. The 1840 election gets a good bit of space, though. Having said all this, the ratio of political discourse to the discussion of Van Buren's private life is overwhelming. I don't feel like I came away from this knowing much more about him as a human being. It feels like I'm being kind of held at arm's length a bit. Having said that, I will also say that I've heard this same critique of other Van Buren biographies, like the John Niven's one that came out around this same time. So one has to wonder if it speaks to Van Buren's privacy as an individual. His wife Hannah died when he was in his 30s, and he never remarried, which seems to have made him into a bit of a grief-stricken man that hid his pain very well. It doesn't seem like he talked about his emotions or his personal life very much, so biographers trying to get that full picture would probably be disappointed with what they're given to work with. Thus, do I blame Cole for the book's lack of emotional connection? Not really at all, though I do think there were parts that could have used more elaboration rather than Cole just kind of glossing over those very few publicly documented emotional moments. Everything said, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this is a well-rounded book. It is a more niche book that serves said niche very well. But even with the lack of material on his personal life, a proper, popular biography of Van Buren still needs to happen. His legacy deserves reevaluation, and I think this book is a step on the way there, rather than the destination itself. And that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, more reviews are to come. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, right here on Music Hub.